Picture two screens. On the left, imagine a kitchen tap in a small town in Arizona, or maybe the Central Valley of California, or perhaps rural Alberta. A parent turns the handle, the water runs clear. A child fills a glass and drinks it without thinking. It costs fractions of a penny. It feels infinite. It feels like a human right. Now look at the screen on the right. A Bloomberg terminal in a glass tower in lower Manhattan. A trader scrolls past tickers for oil, gold, copper, wheat. Then he stops. He hovers over a symbol that shouldn't exist. NQH200. That is the ticker symbol for the Nasdaq Veles California Water Index. In December 2020, for the first time in human history, water joined gold, oil, and soybeans as a tradable commodity on the futures market. It was a quiet moment. No sirens, no breaking news alert on your phone, but historians might look back at that moment as the end of an era. The end of the era where water was a public good, the beginning of the era where water is an asset class. We usually talk about the price of oil, the housing bubble, the national debt. But you can live without oil. You can live without a house. It's unpleasant, but you survive. You cannot live without water. Right now, two massive forces are converging on the world's water supply. One is Wall Street. Hedge funds and private equity firms are realizing that in a warming world, water is the only asset that has no substitute. They are buying the land to own the aquifers underneath. The other force is artificial intelligence. We think of AI as code in the cloud, but the cloud is on the ground. It is made of servers. Those servers are hot. They need to be cooled. And the liquid they drink is the same liquid you drink. Here at Hoch, we look for the hidden mechanisms that drive the world economy. Usually those mechanisms are about debt or currency. Today, the mechanism is biological. This is the story of how the most abundant substance on Earth became the ultimate finite resource. This is the story of the water wars. Not the wars of the future with tanks and jets, but the quiet wars happening right now in courtrooms, on trading desks, in zoning meetings for massive data centers. The war for your thirst has already begun. Most people just haven't noticed yet. 1. The Commodore's ghost, how water became an asset. To understand why a hedge fund manager cares about a river in Colorado, you have to understand the history of the commons. For thousands of years, water was viewed as res communis, a thing common to all. Roman law dictated that running water could not be owned. It belonged to the public. You could use it, but you couldn't hoard it. That legal philosophy held for centuries. It built civilizations. But in the 21st century, the philosophy changed. Economists looked at the water crises in the American West, in Australia, in the Middle East. They came to a conclusion. We are running out of water because it is too cheap. If you price water at zero, people waste it. They grow almonds in the desert. They flood irrigate fields in the middle of the day. Efficiency collapses. So the solution proposed by the market was financialization. Put a price on water, a real market-driven price. People will conserve. Efficiency will go up. That is the theory. And in theory, it is sound. But when you turn a resource into a financial product, you invite a new kind of participant into the market. In 2020, the CME Group launched water futures. This allowed farmers to hedge their risk. If a farmer is worried about a drought driving up the price of water, he can buy a contract now to lock in the price. It is insurance. It is risk management. It makes sense. But for every hedger, there must be a speculator. For a farmer to sell his risk, someone else must buy it. That someone else is a trader who is betting that the water shortage will get worse. He doesn't farm. He doesn't live in the watershed. He's in a glass tower 3,000 miles away, and he profits when the reservoirs run dry. This creates a perverse incentive structure. We now have a class of financial actors who profit when water gets scarce. We have billions of dollars of capital that arguably benefit from water stress. This isn't a conspiracy. It is just market mechanics. But unlike oil, which you can choose not to buy if the price goes to $200 a barrel, maybe you ride a bike, maybe you take the bus, water has inelastic demand. That is an economic term that means you will pay anything. If the price of water goes up 100%, you pay it. If it goes up 1,000%, you pay it, because the alternative is death. When Wall Street realized this, that water is the ultimate inelastic commodity, the race was on. But they didn't just buy futures contracts. Those are paper. They wanted the real thing. They wanted the aquifers. They wanted the land. They wanted control. 2. The silent land grab, buying the aquifer beneath your feet. If you look at a map of the American Southwest or parts of Australia or South America, you will see a pattern. Farms are being sold. Family farms that have been held for generations are being bought up by anonymous LLCs, limited liability companies, shell corporations. If you dig into the paperwork, you often find that these LLCs trace back to massive investment firms, university endowments, hedge funds in New York or London. Why is a Manhattan banker buying an alfalfa farm in Arizona? He doesn't care about the alfalfa. He might not even harvest it. He is buying the water rights. In many legal systems, specifically the prior appropriation system used in the Western US, water rights are tied to the land. First in time, first in right. If you own the land that has the oldest claim to the river or the aquifer, you get your water before the city, before the factory, before the neighbor. These firms are engaging in water banking. They buy the land, they fallow the fields, stop farming, and they wait. They wait for the drought to get bad enough. They wait for the nearby city, maybe Phoenix, maybe Las Vegas, to get desperate. And then they sell the water rights to the city for a massive premium. This is arbitrage. They are arbitraging the difference between the agricultural value of water, which is low, and the municipal value of water, which is high. And the spread is enormous. Take the case of the McMullen Valley in Arizona. A few years ago, a company controlled by a New York investment firm bought nearly 13,000 acres of farmland. The locals were confused. Why there? It's the middle of nowhere. No infrastructure, no markets nearby. It turns out that land sits on top of a massive groundwater aquifer. Under Arizona law, in that specific area, if you own the land, you can pump as much water as you want. There were no meters, no limits, no oversight, so you have a transfer of wealth happening in real time. The groundwater, which took thousands of years to accumulate, is being privatized by the entity with the deepest pockets. This creates a terrifying dynamic for the local community. If the hedge fund pumps the aquifer dry to sell the water or grow high-intensity crops for export, the neighboring wells go dry. The family farm next door can't afford to drill a well 2,000 feet deep. The hedge fund can. They have the capital. They have the lawyers. They have the time. It is a resource extraction game played with the most vital liquid on Earth. And this isn't just an American story. It is happening in the Murray-Darling Basin in Australia. It is happening in Chile. Capital is flowing to where the water is, locking it down, preparing to sell it back to us by the gallon. Let me know in the comments. Do you live in a region with water stress? Have you noticed new corporate owners buying up farmland around you? But while Wall Street is buying the supply, a new player has entered the game to drive up the demand. And this player drinks more than any farm ever could. 3. The thirsty machine. The physics of artificial intelligence. We need to talk about the physical reality of the internet. We use words like the cloud or virtual reality. These words are metaphors. They trick us into thinking the digital world is weightless, clean, ethereal. It is not. The cloud is a physical place. It is a massive concrete building filled with rows and rows of silicon chips. Those chips are burning electricity, and they are generating heat. The internet is essentially a machine that turns electricity into heat. And to keep that machine from melting down, you need to cool it. How do you cool a data center? You can use air conditioning, which uses massive amounts of electricity. Or you can use evaporative cooling. You spray water over the cooling towers. The water evaporates, taking the heat with it. It is efficient. It is cheaper than using pure electricity. But it consumes water, millions and millions of gallons of it. Then comes generative AI. A standard Google search uses a tiny amount of energy, but a query to a large language model, like ChatGPT or Claude, uses significantly more computational power. 10 times more, 20 times more. The chips run hotter. The cooling demand spikes. Researchers at the University of California, Riverside estimated that training a single massive AI model can consume 700,000 liters of clean fresh water. That is enough water to fill the cooling tower of a nuclear reactor. And that is just training the model. Once, when you use the model, when millions of people ask it to write emails or code or generate images, the water consumption is constant. They estimate that a conversation of roughly 20 to 50 questions with a chatbot essentially drinks a 500 milliliter bottle of water. Now multiply that by billions of users. We are building a digital intelligence that is physically thirsty. And where are these data centers being built? They are often built in places with cheap electricity, places like the American desert, agricultural regions, places where water is already scarce. This sets up a conflict that I call the three-way war. In a drought-stricken region, you have 3 entities fighting for the same aquifer. The farmer needs water to grow food. The resident needs water to shower and drink. The data center needs water to keep the AI running. Who wins? In a pure market system, the data center wins every time. Why? Because the economic value of 1 gallon of water used in AI is astronomically higher than the value of 1 gallon of water used to grow alfalfa. Google or Microsoft can afford to pay any price for water. A farmer operating on thin margins cannot. A household on a fixed income cannot. So we are seeing a silent displacement. Water rights are being bought up by tech giants. Municipalities are signing secret deals to guarantee water to data centers because they want the tax revenue. They want the jobs. They want the investment. And in the short term, it makes sense. But in the long term, we are effectively trading our hydrology for technology. We are turning our aquifers into steam to power the digital brain. And when the well runs dry, the data center can move. The farmer cannot. The family cannot. The data center is mobile. Thirst is not. 4. The pricing paradox. Tier 1 versus Tier 2. So how do we solve this? How do we prevent a world where the rich have green lawns and the poor have to ration their showers? This brings us to the most difficult conversation in economics, the two-tier system. Water is unique because it is two things at once. It is a human right. You need a few liters a day to survive. And it is an economic commodity. You use it to make microchips, steel, and burgers. The problem is that our current system treats all water the same. The water you drink is priced roughly the same as the water used to wash a car or cool a server. That makes no sense. But changing it is politically impossible. Financial historians and economists are starting to propose a bifurcation. Tier 1 water. This is survival water. Drinking, cooking, basic hygiene. This should be free or nearly free. It should be a guaranteed right for every citizen, paid for by taxes. Nobody dies of thirst in a civilized society. Tier 2 water. This is economic water. The water for the swimming pool, the golf course, the almond farm, the data center. The argument is that Tier 2 water should be priced violently high. It should be priced at its true market value, including the cost of scarcity and environmental depletion. If a data center wants to use 1 million gallons, they should pay a premium that reflects the fact that they are depleting a finite resource. If a golf course wants to stay green in the desert, they should pay the real cost. Not the subsidized cost, not the politically negotiated cost, the real cost. But here is the catch. If you raise the price of Tier 2 water, you raise the price of everything else. If farmers have to pay market rate for water, the price of food doubles. If chip manufacturers pay market rate, the price of phones goes up. If factories pay market rate, the price of cars goes up. We have built our entire global economy, our cheap food, our cheap electronics, our cheap everything, on the assumption that water is effectively free. We are currently enjoying a water subsidy provided by nature, and nature is about to foreclose on the loan. The math doesn't work anymore. The aquifers are depleting faster than they are recharging. The glaciers are melting. The rainfall patterns are shifting. And we are still pricing water like it is 1970. Quick poll. If your water bill tripled tomorrow but your income stayed the same, what would you cut first? Food? Electricity? Gas? Drop your answer below. This is the trap. We know water should cost more, but if it costs more, the entire system breaks. So we keep pretending. We keep subsidizing. We keep hoping someone else solves it. And while we wait, Wall Street is buying the aquifers, AI is drinking the reservoirs, and the tap in your kitchen is running on borrowed time. 5. The geopolitical dimension. The blue gold wars. If you think this is just a domestic issue about zoning laws and hedge funds, zoom out. Look at the map of the world. We spent the 20th century fighting wars over oil, black gold. Control the oil, control the economy, control the shipping lanes, control the world. The petrodollar, the OPEC cartel, the Gulf Wars. All of it was about energy. The 21st century will be defined by blue gold water. Look at the Nile River. Ethiopia is building a massive dam, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Egypt is downstream. Egypt relies on the Nile for 97% of its water. If Ethiopia fills the dam too fast, Egypt goes dry. This is an existential threat that could lead to war. Not maybe, could. The rhetoric is already heating up. Look at the Himalayas, the third pole. The glaciers there feed the rivers that support India and China. Billions of people. China controls the headwaters. As the glaciers melt, that supply becomes volatile. India is building dams. China is building dams. Both countries have nuclear weapons. Both countries are running out of water. Look at the Jordan River. Israel, Jordan, Palestine, Syria. All fighting over the same tiny river. The peace treaties in the Middle East are not just about borders. They are about water allocation. If the river dries up, the treaties collapse. And now look at Canada. We talked in previous videos about Canada's resource wealth, oil, timber, minerals. But the real treasure is water. Canada has 20% of the world's fresh water. The Great Lakes, the rivers, the snowpack, the aquifers. It is a hydrological superpower. The United States is thirsty. The American Southwest is in a mega drought. The Colorado River is overallocated. Lake Mead is at historic lows. Las Vegas, Phoenix, Los Angeles, millions of people, all dependent on a river that is running dry. There is a long-standing idea, often dismissed as conspiracy theory, of bulk water exports. Pipelines moving water from the Great Lakes or the Canadian North to the American Southwest. Right now, it is politically impossible. Canadians would revolt. But as we say here at Hoke, politics is just the shadow cast by economics. If the economic desperation in the U.S. South gets high enough, the political reality will change. Water will become a national security asset. Countries that have it will guard it like nuclear weapons. Countries that don't have it will trade anything or fight anyone to get it. Treaties will be written. Borders will be redrawn. Not because of ideology, because of hydrology. This is the macro environment that Wall Street is betting on. When a pension fund buys water rights, they aren't just betting on the weather next year. They are betting on the geopolitical inevitability of scarcity. They are taking a long position on human survival. And if they are right, the returns will be astronomical. Because you can negotiate on oil prices. You can find substitutes for oil, but you cannot negotiate with thirst. There is no substitute for water. 6. The Enshittification of utilities. When your tap requires a credit card. Let's bring this back to your kitchen table. How does this affect you, the regular person? It affects you through the infrastructure. For decades, water utilities were boring. They were public monopolies run by the city, designed to break even. The goal was not profit, the goal was service. Keep the pipes flowing, keep the water clean, charge enough to maintain the system. Nothing fancy. But as cities go broke and infrastructure crumbles, we are seeing a trend toward privatization. Cities sell their water systems to private corporations to get a quick infusion of cash. They need the money now. The pension funds are underfunded. The roads are falling apart. The schools need repairs, so they sell the water utility. When a private corporation runs the water, the incentive changes. The goal is no longer public service. The goal is return on equity, maximize profit, cut costs, raise prices, extract value. We have seen this in the UK, where water utilities were privatized in the 1980s. The result? Massive payouts to shareholders, massive debt taken on by the companies, and raw sewage dumped into the rivers because they cut costs on maintenance. The infrastructure is crumbling, the service is terrible, but the dividends are great. This is the enshittification of the most basic utility. If Wall Street gets involved in the municipal water supply, you can expect the same thing that happened to housing. Prices go up, service gets optimized, which means worse for you, and if you can't pay, you get cut off. The vision of the future isn't necessarily a Mad Max desert. It is a subscription model. You pay a subscription for your water. If you want high pressure, you pay for Water Plus. If you want it during peak hours, you pay surge pricing, like Uber. But for your shower. It sounds dystopian, but the technology is already here. Smart meters. They can track your usage in real time. They can adjust prices based on demand. They can shut you off remotely if you don't pay. The financial models are already built. The software is ready. All they need is the political will to implement it. And when the next water crisis hits, when the reservoir hits 20% capacity, that political will appears overnight. Because in a crisis, people accept things they would never accept in normal times. 7. The loophole. The virtual water trade. There is one last mechanism you need to understand. It is called virtual water. You might think your country is water secure. Maybe you live in a rainy place, plenty of rivers, plenty of lakes, but you import virtual water every day. You just don't see it. It takes 15,000 liters of water to produce 1 kilogram of beef. It takes 2,700 liters to make 1 cotton t-shirt. It takes 13,000 liters to make a smartphone. When a country like Saudi Arabia buys alfalfa from Arizona to feed its cows, it isn't buying a plant. It is importing American water. When we buy cheap clothes from Bangladesh or electronics from Taiwan, we are importing their water resources. The global trade system is essentially a massive system of moving water from one place to another, disguised as goods. As the water crisis deepens, this trade will break down. Countries will stop exporting water-intensive goods. They will hoard the water for themselves. This means the era of cheap globalization ends, not just because of tariffs or wars, but because the physical input, the water, is being kept home. This contributes to the structural inflation we talk about on this channel. Things will cost more because the water required to make them is no longer free. The beef will cost more. The clothes will cost more. The phones will cost more. Not because of supply chains, not because of labor costs, because of water. And here's the kicker. The countries that are net importers of virtual water are also the countries with the least fresh water. The Middle East, North Africa, parts of Asia. They have built their entire economies on the assumption that they can always buy food and goods from water-rich countries. When that trade stops, they face a choice, collapse, or conflict. We are seeing the early stages of this now. Food export bans during droughts, restrictions on water-intensive crops, countries like India banning rice exports to keep domestic prices stable. This will accelerate. The global supply chain is not just dependent on oil and shipping lanes. It is dependent on water, and water is running out. What's our 8? The Canadian paradox. Abundance does not equal security. Let's talk specifically about Canada. Because if you're watching this channel, there's a good chance you're Canadian, or you care about Canada, or you're wondering if Canada is the safe place to be when the water wars heat up. Canada has 20% of the world's freshwater. The Great Lakes, which Canada shares with the US, contain 21% of the world's surface freshwater. The rivers, the glaciers, the aquifers. On paper, Canada is a water superpower. But abundance does not equal security. Canada faces three major water vulnerabilities. First, the distribution problem. Most of Canada's water is in the north. Most of Canada's people are in the south. The prairies, where most of the agriculture is, face periodic droughts. Alberta and Saskatchewan have water stress. Not as severe as Arizona, but real, and getting worse. Second, the infrastructure problem. Canada's water infrastructure is aging. The pipes are old. The treatment plants need upgrades. Municipalities are underfunded. There have been multiple boil water advisories in Indigenous communities for decades. Canada has water, but it doesn't always have access. Third, the geopolitical problem. Canada shares a border with the United States, the longest undefended border in the world. The US has 10 times Canada's population, and the US Southwest is running out of water. At some point, the political pressure to divert Canadian water south will become enormous. Not today, not next year, but eventually. There are already proposals for bulk water exports. The Nawapa project, floated decades ago, suggested diverting rivers from Canada and Alaska down to the US Southwest and Mexico. It was shelved as too expensive and politically toxic. But as the crisis worsens, these ideas come back. Canada's water is valuable, and value attracts attention. And attention, when combined with desperation, leads to pressure. Canada will have to decide how to protect its water resources while maintaining its relationship with its largest trading partner. That is not a simple problem. The point is this: even if you live in a water-rich country, you're not insulated from the water wars. Because water, like oil, is fungible. It can be moved, it can be sold, it can be taken, and if your neighbor is thirsty, your abundance becomes their target. What do you think? Should Canada export water to the US if the Southwest dries up? Or should we keep it here? Let me know below. 9. The liquidity trap. When thirst becomes a balance sheet problem. So where does this leave us? We're entering a period of transition. We're moving from the Holocene age of stability and abundance into the Anthropocene age of volatility and limits. The water wars are not coming. They are here. They are being fought with checkbooks and zoning permits. Wall Street has realized that the water cycle is the ultimate business cycle. AI has realized that intelligence requires hydration. And you, the citizen, are caught in the middle. The danger isn't that we run out of water completely. The earth is a closed loop. The water is still here. It evaporates, it rains, it flows. The danger is that we run out of affordable water. The danger is that water becomes a luxury good. The danger is that we allow the financial logic, which demands infinite growth, to override the biological logic, which demands balance. If we allow the market to price water purely on its economic value to the highest bidder, the data center will always outbid the farmer. The swimming pool will outbid the ecosystem, the hedge fund will outbid the family, and the ticker symbol will outbid the tap. This is the liquidity trap, not the monetary kind, the hydrological kind. We have created a system where the most essential liquid on Earth is being treated like any other asset, and assets are priced to maximize returns. But you cannot drink returns. You cannot irrigate crops with a futures contract. You cannot cool a city with a balance sheet. At some point, the financial abstraction crashes into physical reality, and when it does, people get hurt. Not the people with deep pockets, not the people with diversified portfolios, the people with one tap in the kitchen and no backup plan. 10. The fork in the road. Commons or commodity? We have to decide as a society if water is an asset to be traded or a common good to be protected. Right now, we are trying to have it both ways. We say water is a human right, but we price it like a commodity. We say everyone deserves access, but we allow hedge funds to buy the aquifers. This contradiction cannot hold forever. Eventually, we will be forced to choose. Path 1, the market path. Water is fully commodified. Prices rise to reflect scarcity. Innovation is incentivized. Efficiency improves. The rich stay hydrated. The poor make hard choices. Inequality explodes. But the system is stable in the sense that supply and demand eventually balance at a price. Path 2, the commons path. Water is declared a public good. Extraction is regulated. Markets are restricted. Tier 1 water is guaranteed. Tier 2 water is rationed or priced high. Innovation is slower. Efficiency is enforced by law, not incentive. Inequality is lower. But the system is fragile because it depends on political will and good governance. And politics can change. Neither path is perfect. Neither path is easy. But the current path, pretending we can have cheap water, infinite growth, and no consequences, is not a path. It is a cliff. And we are walking toward it with our eyes closed. The ticker symbol NQH20 is flashing on the screen. The price is moving. The bets are being placed. Wall Street is buying the land. AI is drinking the reservoirs. And the tap in your kitchen is still running. For now. The question is not whether the water wars will happen. They are already happening. The question is whether you will notice before it is too late. Who owns the rain? If the answer is BlackRock or Microsoft, then we are heading into a future where thirst is just another line item on a balance sheet. And you, the regular person, are the one who pays the bill. Here at Hoch, we track the money, and right now the smart money is moving upstream. It is time to pay attention to the tap, because one day you might turn it on and find a credit card reader attached to the nozzle. If this helped you see beyond the headlines about AI and droughts and water futures, share it with someone who still thinks water is too basic to be financialized. Because the war has already started. Most people just haven't noticed yet. Drop a like if this hit too close to home. Subscribe for economic truths nobody else will say. And tell me in the comments, what's your water situation? Are you feeling the squeeze yet? Or are you still in the safe zone? Because the safe zone is shrinking, and the bill is coming due. And it has your name on it.